Let's talk about something real quick. Yeah, you. The person who clicked on the video. Lean in real close. Don't let anyone else hear. Because if the wrong person finds out we're even entertaining these thoughts, they're going to throw a fit. But winkers, you say. What the fuck could someone say about an MMO that would make them so irrational? Except you didn't say that, because it's MMOs. And if you've played one, you know people just really aren't very reasonable. Reasonable is the word of the hour, because we're going to talk about something I've experienced after playing both World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV. WoW has its unreasonable players. Final Fantasy XIV has its unreasonable players. Some are currently arguing over what add-ons give an unfair advantage, and which don't. They're different, but after experiencing both to the level cap and beyond, I've realized that Final Fantasy XIV has slightly less unreasonable players, and I'm going to talk about why. Let's begin with a quick primer. You start at level 1, you kill some enemies, you do the quests, you level up, you go to a new zone. That's WoW. In FF14, you've got a story quest chain you follow as well, for your first job at least. And this is kind of nice because it more or less guarantees you get as much XP as you need while following it. This all sounds easy enough, you play the game, it doesn't make it hard for you, and you're always given direction. You slowly progress, and have time to learn what all of your abilities do and when to use them. So far, so good. Then you hit max level, and it goes to shit. Like, bad. For WoW, at least. Final Fantasy XIV doesn't have this problem. It has what I'm calling the Great Filter. If you're familiar with the Fermi Paradox, this probably sounds familiar. It's a bunch of bullshit babble explaining that, at a certain point, civilizations have to beat a hurdle before they can move beyond the bounds of a single planet. It kind of explains why maybe there aren't a bunch of aliens out and about in flying saucers. FF14 has that for content. WoW doesn't. Now, if you take a step back to when that clean-dicked asshole who doesn't wash his hands kicked the powder keg that was WoW's decline, you'll remember that there was a huge transition of players from WoW to FF14. This was kind of interesting at first. You had a lot of people who hated having to read and found the story boring. You also had some people buy a character boost and skip ahead, and in a way, this was the first warning of the Great Filter for someone completely ignorant of the game's workings.
Where were the heels?
This is where FF14 pulls ahead. It's a good thing. You might not think so, but then again, you might be in the category of leeches when it comes to World of Warcraft. What's a leech? A leech is the guy who screams, "You don't pay my sub!" when you're trying to clear an LFR encounter and they just abso-fucking-lutely will not stop doing whatever stupid thing they're doing that makes the fight so much harder. Either the group is capable of carrying them, or the group does not proceed. The problem is that this person was never stopped. They were never sufficiently challenged to change their ways, or to just fuck off and go play a game more their speed, like Skyrim with difficulty turned all the way down. Or their genitals, because they're basically just jerking off anyway. FF14 doesn't have jerk-offs like this though. Granted, they have their own jerk-offs, but not like this. Rather, FF14 gives you challenge after challenge after challenge at roughly the LFR or normal raid difficulty while you're leveling. There's downscaling to get you grouped up with vets, and their gear progression system makes sure those vets are happy to queue into that encounter with you randomly. Of course, you could still be carried, but the last time I saw an absolutely idiotic mouth breather was during the Bismarck fight in the first expansion. This is before the game even really starts to challenge you, by the way. For context, you have to jump on the boss and DPS them to do damage. If you're off, your damage is 0. This asshole not only refused to jump on the boss, but would waste the group's limit break like they were the snowflake star of their own anime. If you don't do enough damage quickly, the boss destroys the platform you fight on and everyone dies, wiping the group. Yeah. Meanwhile, in World of Warcraft, you get all the way to level cap without having to do a single dungeon. The dungeons you actually do are typically very easy. This doesn't change until you reach the currently released expansion, where the developers suddenly remember what gameplay is and you start to be pressured. It gets worse though, because WoW has Mythic Plus. Leeches never bring the Mythic key. They just join your group, get carried, or they ruin it for everyone and leave, thereby fucking over the guy who actually brought the key. That's reason 1 why the Great Filter is so great, and why I award FF14 major points for having it. You see, in order to progress in FF14, you need to do the story quests. You have to do the fights in that story. In WoW, if you haven't played constantly, you are probably completely oblivious to how much more experience other players have. You cannot even fathom how far behind you are. This generally isn't an issue in FF14 because you have this baseline that all players have gone through, and that's part of it all. In WoW, you have the opposite of a filter here because content is allowed to decay and become easier as time goes on. It's very depressing because the developers wanted to make leveling easier and chose lots of quick and easy over less quality, challenging content that might take more time. Quantity over quality, literally. That's reason 2 for the Great Filter. What's last is more important, and more so a rebuttal to a comment I know will come up. Item level. FF14 has it, just like WoW, but requiring a certain eye level will never be enough to keep the leeches out, especially in WoW. Why? Well, we have this thing called the WoW token. Oh yes, that. It's worth a lot of gold. You know what you can do with gold? Buy equipment. Raid equipment even. Oh boy, you just started a heroic sanctum of domination, and everyone met the eye level requirement. You go to fight the first boss, but little Timmy keeps dropping easy mechanics. How? Oh, you say more than half of little Timmy's gear has been purchased. Someone in the raid whispers to you that little Timmy is known for buying Mythic Plus carries. You go to confront little Timmy, and they try to buy you off for a carry in an already ill-fated pug. You tell little Timmy that no amount of gold will make up for them dropping mechanics that wipe the raid, and what does little Timmy do? Probably slams the caps lock on to complain and scream in trade chat about how you said something racist after he gets his one-way fuck-off ticket back to Oribos. Anyway, the point is this. World of Warcraft infantilizes its player base. The idea that you're responsible for holding your own in group content has somehow become taboo, and there's no check within the game to keep that kind of aggressive toxicity from impacting the player base. And it's important too. You're probably scoffing at this video, laughing at how it has no bearing on people in higher difficulties. But when a raid tier releases, you're an LFR trying to fill gear slots. Most of the player base doesn't really get into higher difficulties. These assholes who make the game worse for everyone else are actually the same people buying carries from the guilds who have higher content on farm, unjustly inflating their ego and allowing them into yet higher content where they can shit all over the experience of everyone who came prepared. Some of you probably think I'm overreacting, that this didn't warrant a video and that I'm just whining. Well, too bad. I got to experience not having to deal with those assholes and it was incredible. The difference was too great. Something has to be done. A little effort will go a long way here, and realistically, the people who become leeches probably didn't intend to end up that way. They just took the road of least resistance to what they wanted, and that's the issue. There's nothing to slow them down and say, you shouldn't be here yet. And that's one of the WoW community's greatest sources of toxicity right now.